So I'm here with Heidi Cooper from TorahFamilyLiving.com, and we have been privileged to know each other for quite a few years now, and I stalked her for quite a few years before that, so I feel like I've known her for a long time. I was telling my daughter this afternoon how I knew Heidi, and I, you had a website, and today, maybe this is my old age, but I can't remember the name of it. It had boots in the title. What was that called? Do you still have that site?
I don't, but it was serving the creator in my rubber boots.
That's it.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yep.
And all the science stuff by Torah portion, it was amazing. And you could go through and find out what to do with science. Now you have a lot of stuff on your website still that you can go with different sections of scripture, and you have history and science and nature study and lots of things, Hebrew study. And so you haven't really stopped. You've been blogging and blogging for a long time. When did you start? When did you get the idea to make a planner? Because your planner, and I should show people, in a second, I will show everyone your website and your planner. Unless you want to just hold it up, feel free if you'd like to do that.
Mine has a cover on it, but
Ooh, that's
let me see if I can.
I like that.
Let me see if I can pop it up. But I designed a planner because I needed one.
Mm-hmm.
That's and then I sold it afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was because I desperately needed one. There it is.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah, I was a hot mess. And what really made me change my ways is I was really letting my husband down. He'd ask me to do things and I would forget. And how many times can you say I forgot before he starts to really think you don't care? You know, so I knew I had to change. I had to do something better. And I started with a notebook, which helped. And then it kind of evolved into something nicer, and people got wind of it and says, I want one too, you know, so I started selling them. But yeah, I created it because I needed it. Yeah. And it just went from there. And then I added features that helped me do a better job, because organizing my time and planning and having everything laid out helps me to do my job better. You know, it does.
Absolutely. And I think as homeschool moms, it's a full-time job to be a homeschool mom, and we still have everything else on our plate. Nothing got reduced just because we started to homeschool. And so, and I don't know about you, but when I have a lot on my mind, it hits me about 3, 4 in the morning, and I have to go to the bathroom, and then suddenly I'm worried about all the things that I forgot to do yesterday, and I don't know how I'm going to get them all done today. So, let me see if I have a list of questions. We have a lot of people who said they couldn't come tonight, and I wanted to make sure they get represented tonight. And any of you guys that are here, if you have a question, pipe up, raise your hand, put it in the chat, just go ahead and, start talking. We don't mind. Don't bother interrupting us. It's perfectly good. So, Heidi, I think I know what your answer might be, but what is the most important part of your day, and how do you plan for it?
Okay, I really like to start my day by getting my head on straight with Yah. And I know we were talking about it a few minutes ago, but that coffee and Bibles go well together, and it's true.
Oh, it's so true.
But yes, I do find that the day goes better if you start there. And I found I was getting in a bad habit. I'd roll over and, the sun's coming in my window, and I'd grab my phone. And I actually made a note in my planner, prayer before social media. Don't go there first. And that makes a big difference, even if it's just 3-5 minutes before I even got out of bed. And then I usually take some time to copy a scripture passage at the breakfast table when I'm drinking my coffee. And I make notes. I didn't bring any to show, but I usually copy a passage of scripture, and then I'm copying cross passages. I'm defining words, making little notes in the margin around what I copied, which I find really helpful. Yeah. And then I go about what else needs to happen that day. Yeah.
So in your planner that you sell, TorahFamilyLiving.com, you have prayers in the front of it, and you have Torah portions by week. Do you have, I know on your website you have copy work for each month. I love it. I got a concussion last August, and one of the first things I noticed after my concussion, well, 2 things that were really traumatizing. First of all, I couldn't remember how to sound out any Hebrew words. I was like, oh, what in the world? And at first I thought I was just really tired or something, but it took a while for that to come back. And the second thing, and I think I noticed this because I noticed the Hebrew, so I thought I need to do more copy work. And I went on your site, Heidi, and I got your copy work for September. I'm pretty sure that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I got a couple words and I got this horrible migraine and I couldn't do it. And so believe it or not, I mean, this may be obvious, but the therapist has recommended that I do copy work. And she doesn't call it that. And she definitely wouldn't say, scripture, but she means, make sure that you're doing the things that cause a migraine, which tells me that every woman out there needs to do copy work, not just their children. And I know you're a big proponent of that because we need our brains fixed, right?
Right. And I mean, it started back, I know big Charlotte Mason influence. Obviously, she's big into copy work. But when you actually read the Torah portions, and even the king was supposed to make his entire copy of the Torah, if the king was supposed to do it, it's probably good for us too. And if I'm having my kids do it, I should be setting an example. So even at that level, it was important to me. And then I find I do it, and then they're following that example. And you're using more of your brain, like you said.
Definitely.
You're not just, because I don't know about you, but I can read an entire page in a book and then go, my brain was sounding out the words. I don't know what I read, but if you're copying it too, you're going through more thought processes, and it gets in there better. Yeah,
it absolutely stays better. And I know we have different personalities in my family. Some of my kids just like to do straight cursive or copy Hebrew words. Others like to write and then make beautiful pictures around, or my husband is all about fonts. It's like fonts everywhere. I don't do that. I'm not, but he is.
No, I can see you would be just like, get her done, nice and neat. That's you.
Yes, it is. But my husband's like, at the beginning of every week, his planner is laid out just like yours. And the days of the week across, in the big blocks. And he is making these cool logos and things all up and down to remind him of things. And it's like, it's good for him to set aside a time once a week, which was what I was going to ask. One of the questions I was going to ask you, to do all of the pretty, and it makes him remember it better. And I don't have pretty. I should show everyone my planner. It's just something that I went to our printer, the same one we get our books from, and got one just made for myself, but so I just have simple. It's like nothing pretty on it. And, but I have every Sunday morning after Sabbath, I don't love getting up early that morning. I like sleeping in a little bit, and with my coffee, just trying to think through and yet, like you said, go through the prayers. They remind me prayers. I was taught as a Baptist that it was vain repetition to pray the same thing over and over again every day. And when I found out that the Jews pray the same prayers over and over again, based very heavily, almost entirely on scripture, straight out of the, especially the book of Psalms and the prophets, it gets my mind in the right place. And you're never going to be able to find a planner on the market that has that. And to get our priorities straight. Is really, really important. Do you have somewhere in your planner that you list out like goals for your life or goals for this year? Like, how do you do that?
I do. And in fact, a previous Zoom call, you kind of inspired me to get back, because I sometimes get out of the habit of looking. I don't always do well looking at the bigger picture. My husband's really good at that. I'm very right here, but I did actually take some time in the front section. I have some pages for goals as a parent, goals as a wife. And I wrote in some things that are bigger, and so when I'm planning my week, things that get me closer to that goal, I try to make that more of a priority. And I also take that into account in trying to develop better habits. So yes, thank you. I was inspired to kind of revisit that, because sometimes we're just kind of right now, and I do that very much. It's like, I just deal with today and I'm trying to look a little bigger. Yeah.
It's funny you say that, because you have a book called The Ketubah Project, which is for parents. And it's a covenant that you make of how you are going to parent, you and your husband. It's a really good book. But I see that as like the perfect thing like to paste that ketubah somewhere in your planner and remember,
Yes.
week by week. Oh yeah, I was going to say
I was supposed to work on that.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Because I think we do. We get hung up in the day to day, which is important.
It is.
But if our day to day isn't helping us to get where we want to be, we need to reevaluate. Yeah. And I'm kind of doing some of that in my own life right now, because I was getting kind of boxed in a little bit. So
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm looking at my list here. Okay. Let's talk daily routine for a minute. And I don't know if your planner is where you show your daily routine or not. Mine isn't. I have can't see it, but it's right over there. I have a kind of a schedule for each day up on the wall, and I don't really stick to it, but it gives me a track to run on. It reminds me of what I was going to do. Here. Oh, yeah. And you use sticky notes. I love sticky notes.
Yeah, I know you can't probably read it, but it is a page in my planner with a big sticky note on top that says routine. Because I have learned that I do really good with kind of a time blocking approach. Like this is the kind of stuff I do in the morning. This is what I do after lunch. This is, I don't do well with time, but I do well with just chunks of the day. So yes, and it's sticky notes because I don't have it all figured out yet.
Well, no, and they move. It depends.
It's a rough plan. So
I love sticky notes. Yes, because it doesn't matter. As soon as you've got it all figured out, something in the season of life changes.
Or you realize, that's really, I'm not, that and I tried to, I'm already in the habit of doing certain things. So don't fight that, work off of it and just kind of refine it, For example, I already do my Bible study. The first chunk is coffee time. So I'm going, okay, I do my Bible study time. That's when I ship orders. That's when I'm going to pay my bills. So all those things happen in that time. And then I don't have to think about them or worry about them after dinner because I have a slot of time to do those things.
Right.
So having just these are the things I do in this chunk of time helps me to focus. That and it's a Jim Elliott quote, wherever you are, be all there. That's I think it's a really important thing for us to do is this is what I'm doing right now. And I'm going to put all of me into it. Multitasking is just no.
It's not. So
it's not how we're designed to work.
It is not how we're designed to work. And I guess I'm living proof that it can cause accidents and things like that. So, how many kids do you have? Can you share with everybody? And I know they're going to want to know, like, what does a typical day look like for you? Do you mind? Okay. I know we shouldn't compare and copy each other, but sometimes it helps to have an example.
Okay. I have 7 children. My oldest just turned 19 and my youngest just turned 7, and then everything in between. So I have 4 kids in elementary school, 2 high schoolers, and then my oldest does her thing, and so we just finished school the end of May. During the school year, we have the elementary kids. I try to get all of their schoolwork done by about lunchtime. And the older kids, they do most of their work independently. So they have their pile of books, they go do it. And then I, if they need help with algebra or whatnot, I try to give them some time like lunch or right after. And then after lunch, they're allowed to do what they want. And I try to clean, those kinds of things. And then after dinner, that's my main work slot. That's when I do most of my business stuff. So, and then we have animal care and all those kinds of things that fit in, but that's roughly how our day goes, And my husband is home all the time now. So he does work out with the teenagers before lunch, and then he's working on projects, farm chores, fixing things in the afternoon, So yeah, we've got a pretty good, like we've got a good flow going now. Yeah. And now that we're done with school, I just gained a few more work hours,
Yes,
so.
Exactly. Oh, so my mind is going with things I want to ask you. So your husband wasn't always home. I remember when he wasn't, and you used to have babies. So how did that affect your schedule, your routine, how you would plan out life?
With babies, you mean?
Yes, and especially by yourself, right?
Well, he was gone at night actually. So,
Okay.
and he was home during the day.
Okay.
So, yeah, it
Wasn't
was,
too much different.
it really wasn't, because he left after dinner and came home mid-morning.
Yeah.
So yeah, and in the evening when you got babies, that's just snuggle time. So
True.
yeah,
Or read a book time.
exactly. Yep. Yep.
All right.
So,
So you said that you just started summer and you're not doing school.
right.
How long are you going to take your brain off of school before you start planning out a new school year? Do you plan a lot, or do you more let it have some big ideas of what you want to do and just go about it and kind of record what you did? Like how, you know what I mean? Is it like reverse planning for you? After you did it, you write it down in case someone asks, or is it like, are you one of those people that plans out everything?
I do a little of both, actually. And how long are you going to let your brain rest? I already have piles of books.
Exactly.
So I guess not very long. Yeah, I already have piles. I do both. I have, and I was thinking about this. I wanted to make sure I said this. I actually have one cabinet in my house, and I call that my core books.
Mm-hmm.
That is the books that have lasted through several kids. They have worked. They're time tested. They're classic.
You might write a blog post and list those for us,
I
right?
should. You're right.
Yes,
Right.
you should.
But those are books that I've collected over years, and they're like my core. I keep going back to those, and they're divided by subject, and there's only one drawer per subject. So I'm very selective about what goes in those.
Right.
And so it includes things like I have a complete set of Saxon math books. I have the McGuffey readers, and I have certain like science books that I really like. Those are my start. And I have a pretty good idea of what I want each kid doing. But I do also a lot of reverse recording, I guess we could call it. Yes. I'm not super great at planning every detail out for a whole year. It's just not, I mean, I can do it, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen. I start with like, these are the books I want to use. But then I do a lot more just recording what actually happens as we do it. Mm-hmm. So, but yeah, I start with those core books and then kind of build from there.
Right. Well, in your planner, you have a really cool thing. It looks just like what my charts look like when I plan curriculum to write, because planning curriculum is I'm just doing what you do. Everybody does this. Yeah. And so you have like major things like character qualities that you want to teach your kids that year. These are specific things they need to work on in various subjects. But then you have this grid for 180 school days, because most people have 180.
I got it here. Let me show you so they can see that. Yeah, yep. I see. I knew it. I knew I needed to have it. Let me see here.
Yeah, it's awesome.
This is my favorite page in the school section. This is the one I use for everything. Yes. Yes. In fact, let me see if I can pull up one from a. Yeah. See, it's a mess, but.
No, yeah. That's beautiful. That's not
and then
mess.
Like this one, I have multiple kids like in English, and it's our lessons are numbered in the books we use. So I put their initials when they finish each lesson.
Right.
So because I got 6 of them to keep track of. So I just put their initial. You did lesson 160, done. So it works really well. I use it in a lot of different ways, but that's definitely my favorite. Page in that section. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, in Homeschooling Torah, we have a page called the Together School Planner, and I kind of reverse plan for my kids too somewhat. I'm never on day 16 for all kids at the same time. Maybe at day 16 I might be, but certainly not by day 86. I'm not.
Right.
We're all over the place by that point, because it just depends. What if one kid got a cold or something and they just fall behind? It's not really behind, but they're just not on my original schedule. So I have, each week I write down at the beginning of the week where each kid is, and it's easy to copy over from the previous week. And then I save all those. It becomes like a portfolio to say, we really did make progress this year. At least you can see it. I love seeing over 180 days that we actually did something. It's sometimes in the middle doesn't feel like we've accomplished anything. That's one reason I love my planner so much, because if I look back, I'm like, Oh, wow, we really did do something. Otherwise, it just feels like a fog of gray Michigan days after a while, and you don't feel like you
Right,
did anything. And to
right,
show that, you did have check marks and cross-offs on your
hmm
to-do list just feels
right,
wonderful.
right.
So, um, I was going to ask you about your older children, your high school students, and even the daughter that's graduated. So how they work independently, you said. Have you taught them how to use a planner kind of system of their own to be responsible for their own goals? Or how does that work? Because we try to help our daughters and our sons grow up. How do we help them hit those goals?
I have limited, yes. I wouldn't say they don't do what I do.
They're their own people.
Yes, yes. And I think the quicker we embrace that, the better.
Mm-hmm.
But what I do give them is you need to be doing this much work in this subject. And I do check on them, but I do expect them to, and they take the pile of books, they disappear after coffee, and I may have to peek in and say, all right, get the tablet out of here. My son is, he's sometimes gets distracted, but still when I'm okay, now let's have a conversation about what you're learning in history. He's nailing it, So, in fact, he was finishing subjects early this year, which was awesome. So they don't use a planner like I do, but they are learning, like, they've got a measured amount. We need to do this. We need to have this done by this date, so in their own way, they're keeping on target, and I've been really happy to see the discipline that they are growing into, I guess you could say, because obviously they don't start out with that, to show up every day and go through these subjects, and if they're having one that they're not showing up, okay, let's reevaluate. Let's see what the problem is, but yes, from when I start working them into independent learning to when they, they're 11th, 12th graduated, it's like my daughter who graduated last year, she raises ducks. She's got a puppy. And I mean, she is just on top of things. I don't go tell her, hey, did you tend to your ducks? No, she's got her own methodology. She's got everything tracked. She knows when her eggs are going to hatch, and she worked at it a little at a time, but now she tracks all of this, and she basically takes care of, she's got everything all ritualized and routined herself,
Yeah.
So you just introduce it a little at a time and give them more and more responsibility, and they do get there eventually. Yes.
I think it's more of that our job is to establish good habits as they go, and then they continue,
Right.
We have our kids read through the Bible starting, I hope I don't say it wrong, 6th or 7th grade, right in there. They're reading all of the Bible on their own. And I was worried when my first one finished 12th grade, would he keep reading the Bible on his own when I wasn't, assigning it, and he had to check off the things. And they have, all of them have. And of course they fall off the wagon like any of us would. But it's just so, it's encouraging to see that after you've done it for 12, 13, 15, 18 years, you really are in habit. It's awesome.
Yes.
I wasn't in those habits.
My children are required, once they're working more independently, they're required to read a chapter of scripture a day.
Yep.
And I taught them just, you work through a book and you read it as you come to it. I don't really want them just opening their Bible and, whatever pops. So I have them, you read through a whole book and then you move on to another, so, and sometimes they'll say, okay, I'm about to finish this book, Mom, where do you think I should go next? I'll say, go try Nehemiah, or go try,
Yeah, that's cool.
And so that they're reading a whole book at a time, and a chapter a day is just part of their schoolwork. And then I told Naomi when she graduated, I says, that is one schoolwork you don't get to drop that one. And she has it. Work. So, that one you just keep going. Yeah,
for sure. Okay, I'm gonna consult my list here, which means I have to let my eyes look. Okay, so I wrote down. This was nobody else's question but mine. I have some anchors for my day that I like the sticky notes. I love sticky notes too. I either do sticky notes or an Excel spreadsheet, but one of the two. You can move it around because it changes. But anyway, I have some what I call anchors for my day, and I'm guessing everybody does. And I'd love to hear if other people have different ones in mind. But meals were one, naps and bedtime, and even get up in the morning time. Like if we have people that are sick in a year of COVID, we all got COVID in January. So our morning get up time, we stayed in bed longer, but it's still, lunch was still about the same every day, that we still have those anchors as you go.
Right.
Family Bible time is definitely an anchor. Read alouds at night. Now I haven't been doing very good at read alouds this year because I can't read aloud, but that's something we're working back into. I have a list of books now that I want to read aloud to them. And then chores and laundry. Do you have a place in your planner for keeping track of who's supposed to do what? That has been a challenge for our family this year. And I would like to hear, I'm trying to think of, I'm going to have to come up with a new system because we've had kids taking full-time jobs, other kids that sometimes they've had times that during lockdowns and such that they're home and suddenly our whole chore thing just completely gets upended. And then again, sickness and my husband's in college full time. It's just nuts. So, how do you handle chores? I've heard different systems through the years, and I can't figure out one that's going to work for our season we're in right now. And I'm sure others listening would like to hear different ideas. How do you get all that organized?
Well,
No,
it's okay. The only reason I'm struggling is because I've changed a lot of, I've never kept with one the whole way through.
I don't think anyone does. That's the point, I
guess. So right now, everybody is supposed to do a load of dishes. I taught all the kids how to do their own laundry. I don't touch their laundry.
Interesting.
My mother-in-law lives with us, so she has a laundry day. So we do have some things that stay pretty consistent. Some things like Isaac, why has it been 3 days since you swept the kitchen? I tried putting my husband in charge for a while, and I mean, he did great. And then, you kind of peter out of things, and you just have to start a new system. And I think sometimes that's okay though, because you do something good for a while and then it starts petering out. Maybe everybody's ready for a change. Like, I'm really sick of sweeping the floor. Okay, let that person sweep the floor because everybody needs to know how to do it anyway. Yes, I have used my planner to keep track, and I try to keep it just all concise on one page. And I've broken it down by individual chores. I've broken it down by rooms. And I also think it's important to have a balance between, we need to teach our kids how to do things, but we're also the mom and it's our home that we're taking care of. Yeah. I don't expect them to do everything that I, the mom, should be doing. So I have things that I have them do, like they can help. Like I said, they wash the dishes, they do their own laundry, they can sweep floors, they can pick things up. But I also have a system where, in fact, let me show you. It's super simple, which is why it works. I have a bookmark with every room in my house. Okay. And what I do is I start at the top. Okay, it's kitchen. I spend 20, 30 minutes doing all the weird stuff that doesn't normally get done. Okay. And then I call it good. And I'm like, okay, I'm done with that. And then the next day I move on to the laundry room, and I do try to do a deeper job, actually put all the laundry back in the hampers and sweep the floor, declutter a bit. So I'm doing that. They're doing daily maintenance things like, okay, sweep the kitchen, these things need to be done. And then I'm going through as the mom doing deeper stuff in each room. And I cycle through, and it's like, I don't do it on Tuesday. I do it after the kitchen. So if I miss a day, it's okay. I just do the next room on the next day, and it's flexible. It's not like I feel behind because I just do the next room, but I have my kids do the daily jobs, that just need to be done every day. And that keeps us, please don't think my house is immaculate. It's not. Either. It's not. It's not even close. But we can keep it. We can keep it somewhat manageable. We try. Yeah.
Right. And I like what you said about it being, technically it is the mom's job to be the manager of the house. She can delegate it, but there is someone still that, I mean, children just don't notice the grease over the hood in the kitchen.
No, which is that's why I do it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, they know how to do things like that, but I figure if I'm cycling, and it takes me about 2 weeks if I do it every day to get through the house. So, and
but
I can
even if there were 3 or 4, it would still be pretty good.
Yes, it would. And I'd be happy sometimes if I did it in 3 or 4 weeks, because some of the jobs that I do, oh, you're supposed to clean the garbage can in the kitchen. Oops, you know,
Exactly.
Yeah. And I try to be just like, if I just keep at it, I'm not behind.
Right.
Just keep at it. And again, if they're and all my kids know how to cook too. So they can they fix their own breakfast, they fix their own lunch. And then between Naomi and I, you know, she and I can do dinner. And then some of them know how to bake. So they help with those things, and they help with the daily stuff. But yeah, I figure if I'm kind of cycling through doing the deeper stuff, then we're pretty good. Yeah.
That's really great. That's really great. I'm glad I asked that question. So, okay. I am sorry here. My eyes are learning to adjust. Okay. This is a question from a mom who is a working mother, and she has 2 children. I think their ages were 11 and 13. And she works full time, and she's a single mom. And she said one of the most difficult parts for her was just remembering all of the miscellaneous things. And I mentioned her circumstance because I'm sure she just has more responsibility and doesn't have another adult in the house to help her. And her kids are getting older, but like we kind of just mentioned with chores, they're not going to remember. And so that stress starts to hit you. I should also mention she just started homeschooling this year during COVID. And so everything about homeschooling is new. So maybe we should just address 2 things there. How do you remember all of the miscellaneous things that don't fit into a routine and just kind of weigh on you? And then do you have any advice for these homeschool moms that are brand new to homeschooling? A lot of them are still working from home because of COVID, and they've seized this opportunity to homeschool. I'm so happy that more people are homeschooling, but wow, the pressure. I didn't have that. When I started homeschooling. So that was a 2-part question. That's a lot. Sorry, Heidi.
Yeah, because I think you and I both kind of started them at kindergarten. And yes. Right. Keeping track of all the things, write everything down. Write everything down. That is literally, yeah, you can use your phone. I don't because batteries go dead and all, you know, but that's why I use paper planner. Right. But you can absolutely use your phone, but you've got to get it somewhere. Yeah. You know,
somewhere where you're going to see it if you wrote it down there.
Yeah. You've got to be in the habit of checking what you wrote down because this is not designed to store. No, it's not. This is designed to think and create and ponder. The paper or the phone is designed to store your to-do list. So the first thing I would say to anyone who's struggling to remember everything, write it all down. And I find when I'm not doing that, because, you know, I'm the planner girl, but it doesn't mean I'm always faithfully using it like I should. And then I start going, you know, I'm literally imploding. And then what I do is I take a piece of paper and I just write down everything I can think of. I get it out of my head. And then I can go, oh, okay, now I can think again and I can start working through stuff a little at a time. So that I think that answers the first question. You have to get it out of your head. You have to write it down and you know, and then revisit it. Like you got to check it and say, okay, what can I actually manage to do? And then you realize, oh, this was only a 5-minute job. And here I was spending 2 hours trying to remember it when it was only a 5-minute job to begin with, you know?
I can say that if you are a homeschool mom that's brand new, give yourself permission to take a day off school when the stress levels are that high. Call it a teacher planning day if you need to and put it in your calendar in case you think someone might check. And I don't think they will, but if they were to check, say that was a teacher planning day and I was having a conference with the parents and we were,
that's right.
The stress is too much. And sometimes you just need to say, kids, that you have the day off. You can play
Yes.
and do what you want today, and
Yes.
don't interrupt me because I must think.
And that's when you get it out of your head. Yes.
You have
And
permission.
yes, because if you're not at your best, you're not really doing them any good. You're not.
Probably
Because I know,
be.
because I like to call myself like a double introvert. I'm very much in my head. And if there's all of this stuff in there, I can't even function. I just want to cry and just, and I have to deal with it. I have to get it out. I have to journal. I have to just write stuff down. And then I'm at my best again, and as far as the homeschooling too, the new homeschoolers coming into this, my mom started homeschooling me when I was 10th grade. And she was the first person in her county to pull her kids out of school. We didn't know what we were doing. So what she did is she that first year, she used stuff that was all put together for her. Okay. And then she spent that first year when she could just say, here, this is your assignment for today. And she spent that first year learning, getting a feel for things, researching, figuring out how she even felt about educating her children and how she wanted to do it. And then the second year, she could put it all together herself because she gave herself permission to just use a boxed thing, as it were, and then learn how to do it, how she felt good, how she felt she could teach her kids, and then go from there. So I would say give yourself permission to go ahead, use something off the shelf. It's okay. And don't think you've got to do 7 or 8 subjects, because you don't.
No, reading, writing, arithmetic, and just Bible. Seriously, if that is what you have the energy for.
Bible, reading, writing, and arithmetic is it. Literally, science and history can be part of reading. Sure.
But they can wait too.
Just keep it super simple. And it's okay. I was talking to a mom at a book sale the other day, and I said, my children learned far more by accident than I ever taught them on purpose. It's okay if their book learning is just, here we go, we're going to do lesson 1, and that's fine. And then you can kind of get a feel for how you even want to approach education, because I think we all have our own bent, our own personality, our own way we want to do things. And that's part of, Yah made us all different. But sometimes it takes time to get a feel for that, and that's fine. You don't need to have it figured out the first week you homeschool your kids. You don't.
You do not. And even those of us that have been homeschooling for a long time need to realize that our kids are a different dynamic now than they were 10 years ago, and we might have to change everything because they are different. And if we stick to the way we wanted to do it, we might not meet the needs of children in front of us.
Right. So, and I think we're different too. We're different too.
Oh my, yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So for a mom that's new to homeschooling, I think one of the biggest things that might help her out is to realize that she's not a public school. She doesn't have to look like a public school. Just to not compare all the time to the school down the street. It's literally down the street for us. and to realize that you have been given authority by the creator of the universe, and these children were, you were a steward of their lives, and he trusts you or he wouldn't have given them to you. And that's just very freeing. You mentioned something though, when you're doing a brain dump, that you're putting all of your ideas down on that day, and some things look like they're going to take a really long time, and you find out they took 5 minutes. I have that problem. I have a to-do list, and so I have a block for each day, like your planner. And in that block, I might have clean the hummingbird feeder right up there with research year 4 history curriculum, which is like a massive job that could take weeks. And in my mind, I'm like, I have 20 things on my to-do list today. I'm so stressed just looking at it. So I just want to share a tip that I did in that block that you have. I started putting the really short things like clean the hummingbird feeder at the very bottom, and the really big projects at the top. And it doesn't top because they're more important. It's just because that's what I started doing. So I'm in a habit of doing it that way. And so when I think of things like, oh, don't forget to take the garbage out, and I'll put it at the bottom, and I can cross those things off so fast, and it feels wonderful. And those big projects at the top, really, I don't have very many of them going on at a time. And so it doesn't feel so overwhelming. And I just thought I'd share that. Maybe you have some tips. I know your planner is laid out also with some things across the top and down the sides that I don't have on my, I know, do you have like a to buy things, or I can't remember.
Oh, yes, I do. Along the bottom, I do. I have a shopping list. I have an I'm grateful box. And then I stick Shabbat down there as its own thing because it's not part of the work week. So it goes down at the bottom because about all that I usually put in that box is what we're eating because that's, that's my rest.
You're thinking much else.
Right? Yeah, that's all I got to do is make sure we're fed, right?
Yeah.
So the big columns are just Sunday through Friday. But yes, I agree. You kind of need to sort your jobs. Another thing that I find, because I'm realistic, I have a low energy level compared to a lot of people, and I have to be realistic with my expectations. I mean, I've written about it in the past that I have a genetic disorder. I had 2 hip replacements, and so I had to completely. I for many years I did things a lot different than your average mom because I could hardly get out of a chair. Okay. It's much better now, but those lessons and how I did things, I still do them kind of that way. And so what I do is, okay, I might only say you only get to put 6 things. Yeah. Period. Wow. And if I don't fit in those 6 things, it has to go to a later day unless it's seriously time sensitive.
So do you have like a master list of like all the things you wish you could ever do? Yeah,
yes, good. I do. But yeah, when it comes to the day, it's like, okay, in fact, I'll, let me see if I can find an example. If I'm going shopping, I literally create a big block. This is, you're going shopping. So there's not a whole lot of room left to write because there's not going to be a whole lot of energy left. So that helps me to be realistic because if you put 20 things on your list, you're always going to feel discouraged because you're human and you're just not being realistic with yourself. And then I remember talking to a mom way back when I had like 3 or 4 little kids, and she called me and I says, I am so behind. She says, no, you're not. You're right where you are. Just
behind what?
There. Yes, you're not behind anything. You're just right where you are. So you just start there. We need to stop expecting ourselves to be superwoman and be realistic so that we can actually be nice people at the same time and not be all, nasty person. We don't want to go there. So
thank you. That was very helpful. One of the things that the Father led my husband and I to do a couple years ago is to go, and I have a video about this that we did last summer, but we went through some scripture verses that kind of summed up what we felt the Father was calling us to do as a family. And for instance, 1 Thessalonians 4:10-12, we urge you, brethren, that you increase more and more and you aspire to lead a quiet life, to mind your own business, to work with your own hands as we commanded you, that we may walk properly toward those who are outside, and that you may lack nothing. And that's just one. I have a couple pages of them, and I typed them up and put them in the front of my planner so I could remember them. But just like different things, like, they would just be for us, our family. One of them in here is that I'm supposed to have physical strength and endurance and not be sluggish in my work. But seriously, that's one of those things. I love my Sunday mornings because I'll look through those verses and it reminds me of my priorities because I don't know about you, but I'm one of those people that I could be working on a project that I know is important and then some shiny new thing pops up in my mind and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do that other project. I want to do this project. I don't really believe that I'm hyperactive or anything. I think I just like to do it. Yes, I think I'm just normal.
I don't think you're alone. I don't think you're alone.
No, I bet not. So that having that Sunday morning time, it reminds me, first of all, that, we prayed over those things. I know what my husband thinks about what I should be doing. And I know what I'm really passionate about. And I know I cared about it enough to put it on that page. Right. And I'm not saying I never change some of those or add more to it. But, and I'm not saying I don't follow after squirrels. I love that. I'm going to call it squirrels now. It's just to help me remember what my priorities are, and then to have some scripture to base it on is just a really cool thing. Okay, so I'm going to change gears real quick. You have stuff in your planner about menus and budgets. And I'm going to mention those because I think that that meals and finances can be a really big source of arguments in marriage if you don't get a plan for what you're going to do. So for meals, for instance, if it's 6:30, 6:45 at night and no one's defrosted anything, then it's easy to point fingers and say, well, you were supposed to do it. And so having a menu, having a plan, I don't know if you have a menu. My mom does not use a menu. She shops she shops her pantry. But she has a list of specific things she always buys and knows that she can make meals from what's in her pantry. And I'm no good at that. So I have a menu. I'm a menu person. But anyway, how do you use your planner for that? How do you make sure that it happens? Like that you actually remember to get things prepared ahead of time?
I learned how to have a menu because I didn't used to. And the worst thing that my husband possibly could say to me is what's for dinner. Mm-hmm. I don't like that. And so I'm not going there again. So I literally have a rotating menu. Mm-hmm. On Monday, we have burgers every single week, period. Mm-hmm. Monday gets burger night. In fact, my children learned the days of the week by, it's pizza day. They learned the days of the week after they learned, it's like Thursday is pizza day, but they learned, it's pizza day. We have some days that there's wiggle room, but there are certain days of the week that this is what we have, period. And it makes shopping easier. It makes making sure the food is out easier. And I have a whole lot less thinking to do. Mm-hmm. So, and it's really, really, it's just a very good thing. So for example, Monday is burgers, Tuesday is stir fry, Thursday is pizza, Friday is burritos, and that never changes, period. The other days I will do a little wiggle room, and let me see if I can show you here. All of my food, all of my menus get written. I'm trying to find a page where you can see it clearly. And of course you can't, but I write it right at the bottom. That's where it goes. So I'm always looking in the same spot for it. And I try to do my planning ideally Friday so that I'm not thinking about things on Shabbat. I try to get all the next week figured out before we go into Shabbat. Sometimes it waits till Sunday. So I've got Sunday and Wednesday to figure out. And Saturday, we don't have we have the same thing every week, but we only have a few choices. So it's a little easier to lunch is always the same. My daughter's in charge of breakfast. She always bakes something for us on Friday. And then there's only a few choices of what we're going to have for dinner on Saturday. So a lot of the thinking's already done because I think we get in trouble when we give ourselves too much room to think. Meals don't have to be, we don't need to spend all our energy thinking about what's fixed for dinner, So for example, Friday is burrito night. We all know our part of fixing that meal. And so if we end up in a project Friday afternoon, my husband and I, because we do a lot of farm chores, we're fixing fences, we're doing all that kind of stuff. If it runs a little later than we thought, we know that we can go into the house and dinner's going to be fixed because everybody knows what needs to happen. Holly knows she's got to start the rice cooker. Isaac knows when he gets up Friday morning that the beans better be in the crock pot. Naomi knows we got chopped veggies. The younger boys, they know, get the tortillas out, get the hot sauces out. So when we go in at 4:30, dinner's ready because everybody knows this is what needs to happen. Very strong proponent of having a rotating menu that just, this is what happens, Great. And if you want to have some variety, then pick a couple days that you can do that. But if most of your week at least is on autopilot, that's what it needs to be. It needs to be on autopilot. It makes it so much easier.
That's a good word for pretty much a lot of things in life. As a homeschool mom, you want to be able to save your energy for things that matter more than dinner.
Yes, because you don't want to spend all this energy thinking about, did I defrost the meat? Because there's another thing I struggle with. Did I defrost the meat? Probably not.
That's my biggest downfall. That's why I mentioned it so many times. What was the other? The budget. Okay, so that's another area. Now I know different families. Sometimes the husband. I'm gonna cough here. I've got allergies or something going on, but I'll just leave it to you. How do you guys handle that?
I do most of the finances. My husband's perfectly capable, but I've got a bookkeeping background and stuff, whatever. I do it. That I got the planner, right? Anyone asks him, he's like, she's in charge of scheduling. Talk to her.
Absolutely.
So what I do though is I have everything set aside a month ahead. And then at the end of the month, I pay all the bills for the first half. And then halfway through the month, I pay everything for the second half. So everything is laid out a month in advance, and then I plan it all out. So I do write down all of the bills. I check it off when they're paid. I keep track of expenses. But yeah, I do it all a month ahead. So I'm planning for June in May.
Right now.
You know, so yeah, so I know what's coming up in plenty of time ahead. Yeah.
Cool. So I use the monthly calendar spread that you have where, you know, you can see a month at a glance. I use that as my budget where I keep track of all the bills.
Right.
And I have a lot of ours on automatic recurring things so that I don't have to think about it. But I do need to make sure that all the accounts are funded for it.
Right.
And so, and make sure that some of them don't creep up in price because they do that. You know, the electric bill likes to do that. So I just have that. I have that month at a glance, and I have my month at a glance for a couple other things too, like keeping track of, you know, the girls in the house and our cycles and things like that, and just all of it going, things that happen in a month. I don't really use mine for planning ahead that much. I'm weird.
Yes.
I use it more to keep track of the things that I have to do, and I know that I always have to do it on that day of the month. So,
yes. Yeah, and I would agree. I keep the monthly for stuff that's more written in stone. And my day-to-day stuff, that's all on my weekly page. My monthly is for appointments, and yes, I do track Nita on the monthly too. So you count your 7 days, you know. But yeah, I keep that monthly for it. This is the stuff that's like outside commitments and stuff that is on certain dates. The weeklies where I can play around with what I'm doing today. Yes.
Exactly. All right. I am really close to going through all of this. I feel bad. I have not opened it up for questions at all. I'm having too much fun. But I wanted to ask about your project pages. You have some pages in your planner that you can plan big projects. And I'm not really sure how that one works. I know my husband, who has a planner almost really similar to yours, except more it's a masculine one. It doesn't I was saying to her, Heidi ahead of time that it doesn't have the Sabbath on there. It doesn't have the Torah portions. I just love hers. But I know because he uses something like this that it works fantastically. But he doesn't have a project page like this either, which is a good time to mention that you can get her planner and print it yourself, which has a customizable one where you can make kind of your own thing. It's just, I love so much. But anyway, projects. What kind of things do you use this for? I'm thinking maybe gardening, or what do you use it for? Is it for school?
Personally, I use it a lot for work projects. In fact, I was going to mention, you were talking about, I'm going to research this for history.
Right.
That's not a to-do list. That's a project.
That's a project. Okay, so explain the difference and what would that look like?
Okay, so, and I think the man, whoever wrote the book, Getting Things Done, he talks about this. There are things you can just go do and it's done. And there's things that are going to take several steps. That's a project. And that should be tracked separately, because I'm going, no, you don't write research for history. No, you go, okay, I'm going to research this particular part of it. So it's measurable and it's something you can actually do in a day, because you cannot research everything for this. You can't do it in a day. And you're like,
I need to hear this. I actually do have this problem.
Yeah. I understand, because I think a lot of us do, but I don't know. I'm going to try to hold this up. I don't know how well you can see it. Okay. So up at the top, you write down the projects. Okay. So for me, say I'm designing a new product. Okay. I'm going to write down what I want to design. Okay. I'm going to write down a bunch of ideas, things I have in mind for whatever it is I want to design. Okay. And down here, this is supplies I'm going to need. or references. For example, if you're doing some research, these are some websites I want to check out. These are subjects I want to research. Over here, you've got specific steps to do that you're going to do. For example, if I'm doing some graphic design work for a product, I'm going to say for the planner, for example, because I do this every year, I need to design the intro section. I need to design the monthly section because I do them all individually. And so I'm going to lay that all out and on the to-do list. And then I'm going to say, okay, today I'm going to sit here and I'm going to do the intro. And it may take me 2 hours, but that's measurable. And I can check it off and go, okay, I made progress on this big project, but I broke it down ahead of time when I'm planning it out so that I know I'm making progress, but I'm keeping track of the little steps, you know, I'm not just putting work on planner. Because I'll just sit there and go, well, I don't know what I'm going to do today.
Oh, I know. And you don't know when to stop. That's my other problem. And that's
so
why I don't defrost dinner.
Right. So you either have to have like, I'm going to do this specific step, or you say, I'm going to work on it for 2 hours and then I'm going to call it a day.
So I was just going to ask, so going back to your sticky notes that gives you a time block. So I'm assuming you have a time block for when you can work on those things.
Yes. For example, after dinner, I go down to my garage, which is, that's my work. Because I outgrew the little office So I go down there and I work from 6 to 8 and then I say done. I pack it up and I go spend the rest of the evening with my husband because I'm done. I'm no more work until 9:30. I don't do that anymore. I go till 8 o'clock and I'm done. And I sell a lot of used books. And my phone goes cha-ching and it says 7:30 at night and I'm watching a movie with my family. I go, nope, shipping happens at breakfast.
Exactly.
They can wait. Exactly. So I've got it laid out. So no, this happens at this time of day. I'm not going to go run and do it now. It can wait because I have a time slot for that. And then I have a stopping point. I don't work past 8 o'clock because by golly, I'm done. Yeah.
Cool. I needed to hear that. But I would say about the cha-chings, one of the things that keeps me from getting the things done that I had wanted to do, to be intentional about, is the dumb phone. So I use Do Not Disturb almost all the time. And my own family, sometimes if they need me, my older kids that are not at home, I'm like, sorry, I was working on something.
What I do is just shy of Do Not Disturb. I turn off all the notifications except messages, and I do need to know when orders come in, but just about everything else is muted. It's all blocked.
Especially social media, things like that.
That's all blocked.
Something,
I have to go to it.
Right. Because someone's going to have a discussion about, some urgent Torah matter that is going to completely derail your day as your brain. Even if you don't answer that, even if you don't go on and
you're thinking
about it, you're thinking, how would you answer? And you're not keeping your focus on what you should be doing.
Especially if you let that kind of stuff distract you when you're supposed to be, say, teaching your kids.
Oh, absolutely.
Because your kids deserve for you to at least give them 3 hours of, okay, I'm focusing on you and your math skills right now. And that's not what I'm doing. That's, so, and another nice thing about me moving my work stuff to the garage, I used to fill orders. I used to be assembling planners at the breakfast table while I'm teaching them math. I don't do that anymore because I have a work time. I have a work zone. So when I'm at the table and you're doing math, you've got all of mom. And so it's like, okay, we do school, maybe 3 hours doesn't seem like that much, but when you're actually paying attention to what you're doing, it's a lot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And almost everything else could be done on their own time. So except for the very youngest, they don't need more than 3 hours. So exactly.
No, they don't.
I would love to let anybody else talk. I apologize for hogging it. This is a subject I do love. I really do. And I could keep asking questions if no one else. It's 9 o'clock and I do not mind if someone has a question, but I have gone through all of the things that, I received from others. And maybe, yes, you have a question. Go ahead, Amanda.
Can we talk a little bit about finding community and friends for our kids? Because that is hard to find.
Yes.
It is. And I'm afraid I am not a great person to ask because I live in the middle of nowhere.
I was gonna say, tell them where you live.
I live on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
I to be honest, I have the same struggle. I really do. Yeah.
And I live near a city And we do have several Torah communities in our state, and they are focused down in our part of the state. But I mean, it's 45 minutes to the next Torah family. So I knew your question. And I know, I was like, how are we going to answer this question, Amanda? Because
I was hoping you would just have a magic answer, because I'm like, there's no answer for this question, but I'm going to try.
Yeah. I know we have a couple ideas at Homeschooling Torah. We have that community forum, and that is not the same thing as our kids playing together. It is not. And state laws, well, I should say California state law has this thing where kids have to be 16, or you have to go through this whole list of legal ramifications. My husband and I were talking, and we figured out if we just had people like sign an old-fashioned paper permission slip, that would fit all the legal requirements. So I'm going to offer it and then open up a section on the forum for kids to talk to each other. But that is not what you mean. I know it isn't.
Yeah.
And the other thing is to try to get people to move to be closer to each other and to make communities. But obviously that entails buying a house, and in this market, that's not going to be a very easy thing to do. And finding a job, for a husband, it's a complete upheaval of our entire families. So that's not a good answer.
No, but thanks for trying. I do have another question that maybe will be easier to answer. Okay, so you mentioned how, if you need to take a day off because you're overwhelmed or life happens, I totally agree. This past year, like we personally had a lot of life happen, like family deaths and relocations, and it really, really derailed. I'm actually really proud of all that we accomplished, even despite those major life events. But at some point, I can just imagine myself falling into the excuse of, well, life got in the way of school. We can't do school today. So how can I, I'm working my plan. I got this awesome planner that I'm taking notes in. So how can I still work my plan, I guess, in spite of life happening? You know what I mean? I don't want to use that as an excuse. Or
so is life still happening, or has it calmed down and you just can't seem to find a new normal?
So, well, now it's summer, and spring was quite a kerfluffle, but I think we did okay. We accomplished most of the goals we had, so that was good. In August, we'll start fresh, and I don't expect any more major life events. So I'm hoping that by August, I'll have had a year under my belt. I've had a summer to really plan. Life won't happen as dramatically. But just any tips on like, how do you keep going when people are like, I just don't want to do school today?
Personally, I would establish, especially over the summer, you got time to think it out. I would establish a list of non-negotiables and keep it short. Like if we're having a crazy day, we're going to at least do this and this. Even if you don't get, for example, like I think we were talking earlier, reading, writing, arithmetic, but Bible's at the top. Science and history can be done 1 or 2 days a week if needed, but if you have non-negotiables that can fit into a smaller frame of time and be done properly. For example, we'll read a certain passage of scripture together. We'll make sure that we do a short reading lesson. We're going to do math. If even those things got done on the crazy day, then when we're not having crazy days, then we can be doing the other things. But I would recommend that you have at least mentally, this is our bottom line. This is what we're going to do, even on the rough days, so that you're not skipping out entirely. You can abbreviate. You have a short list, as it were, that you can fall back on when you need to.
Okay. That's kind of what we had been doing. So that's good to know that that expectation is appropriate. Thank you.
For some women, you might have had a baby that year, and if you've had Heidi's had 7 kids, so she's had 7 years that things just did not go according to plan. If it was anything like my pregnancies. I had a year like this because of my concussion, and I wasn't able to read aloud. I didn't feel good a lot, especially a couple months back. And we had therapy we had to go to twice a week, and that was not very close to home. So it just ruined your day. And then sometimes I felt sick after. That really shuts down. So again, I completely agree with Heidi said what she said. We had our Torah time together as a family, and it was for a while, around January, February, we did really good. And then I think I mentioned we got COVID in January, end of January, completely derailed us. And after a while, we said, do we really have to stick with the schedule? If we only did Torah time 3 days a week, and we did it at 10 o'clock in the morning, so what if we're not on schedule with everybody else? We might be a month behind by now. I think we are, but we're being pretty consistent now. And if 3 people in the family aren't feeling good that day, then let them skip it. They're going to get it next time. And the rest of us can stay on track and stay in the habit. And so Torah was a non-negotiable for us, and math and reading on their own. I have given them a lot of independent work this year. The other thing that has helped me out is to do short unit studies. And I know Heidi has unit. I was just on her site today, and I didn't know I was going to talk about this tonight, but she has unit studies that for free on her site. And you can study, for 5 or 6 weeks. And 6 weeks is a great section of time to do school and then take a break. And you can do a unit study on something that everybody is excited about. It gets everyone in the habit of doing school at that time, but it puts the actual school books away for a while so that you can start school in August officially. But meanwhile, the habits, the routines are still going, and you're learning how long you can do school, and you can kind of get a sense of it, but maybe you're studying rockets or nothing to do with anything on the curriculum list, but something that kids want to learn about.
Heidi, what's your website again, please?
It's torahfamilyliving.com.
Which reminds me, I wanted to share the screen and show everybody what it looks like. This is torahfamilyliving.com. It's fantastic. I think up here under homeschool, yes, so she has nature study there. Maybe I saw it in your blog post. I know I saw it. There are unit studies there.
There are some short ones that verse-based lesson plans that that are designed for. We've used. I need to make more because they're super fun. We've used them a lot on Fridays when I don't want to do a full day of school because it's prep day. And so you start with a scripture passage. There's worksheets. There's videos. There's optional activities, and there are a lot of science and history. There they are. I do need to do more because my kids really enjoyed them too. I create them for my family first.
Of course.
Then you're starting with like the ant one. Yeah, you're starting with the go to the ant passage. You're talking about biblical concepts as well as going into the science, and it can be a nice break to be doing something. In fact, that'd be a great backup plan when you're having crazy days too.
It is.
Because it's something different. But there's a lot there. And you're covering, they do copy work. There's science, there's history, and it's all right there on the screen. And then there's some worksheets to print. So it's a good option for those kind of days. Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Here's her chat button, and here is where her planner is that we've been talking about the entire time. My internet is going a little slow, so sometime it'll pop up and show it to you, but she has a lot of different options for her planner, and it's really nice. I like that you can get it spiral bound, or you can get those 6 rings so that you can expand it and add your own things to it and customize it, which is really awesome. So someday my internet will load. Does anyone else have a question? It looks like I'm going to check the chat real quick. All right, I don't see any other questions. Heidi, thank you so much. I very much appreciate your knowledge and expertise in this and just sharing from your heart. We know that life is not perfect for any of us, and I know because I've known you that your life is not perfect, that things come into your life that you didn't expect, and yet your desire is to make sure that you're intentional in your life.
Exactly.
And teaching your children, and I appreciate that about you. So, all right, everybody, thank you so much for joining in. And we are going to be having a conference the first week of August, an entire week where we just have lots and lots and lots of videos, lots of people we're interviewing, lots of really cool freebies. And Amanda, we have a session coming on living in community. I'm not saying I have any amazing ideas. I've started brainstorming things, but I have a couple people that are going to come on and give their thoughts. And I think what it is we're going to try to dream of making it better, and maybe all of us can help each other. And so that's kind of my goal. And at that day on this, in the conference, is just to get everybody talking and everybody saying, well, maybe we could do this. I have a couple friends that are putting together co-ops just for Messianic homeschoolers. And so maybe, you know, that's something, if everyone can brainstorm together ways to make that happen, you know. There was an old song in the 1970s, a Christian song that said, why should the devil have all the good music? And I think that's true of homeschooling. You know, we can do it, but it will require us to have the passion and desire, and we need to see it happen. And then we're going to have to put feet to those desires, because nothing right now that I know of exists to make it happen. So, and we're going to need to bathe it in a lot of prayer. So, but I appreciate your question. All right. Real quick, check the chat one more time, make sure that, yep, everything is okay. All right, everybody, thank you very much. I have some ideas for the rest of the webinars this summer, but if you have a topic you would like to see, please let me know. I would absolutely consider it, because sometimes it's hard to think of topics that you guys want to talk about. This one was fun. This one was me. I wanted to talk about it. But seriously, I would like to talk about what you guys have questions on. So let me know. All right, shalom, and have a wonderful evening, everybody.